There was a moment in Elvis Presley's life when the room went completely silent. No cameras, no screaming fans, no applause waiting on the other side of the door. Just Elvis, a few trusted people, and a song lying on a music stand like a loaded secret. The song was finished. The melody was beautiful. The lyrics were simple. Too simple. The kind of simplicity that doesn't hide anything. Elvis looked at the paper for a long time. Then he shook his head slowly and said the words no one expected from the king himself. "I can't do this one." No anger, no drama, just quiet certainty. That was the moment the song became legendary without ever being heard. Because when a man who sang his soul for a living refuses a song, it means the song knows something about him the world does not. Elvis was never afraid of emotion. He built his entire career on it. He sang about heartbreak so convincingly that people believed he had lived every lyric. He sang about love like it was both a gift and a wound. He sang gospel with a voice that sounded like it was reaching upward for something already lost. So when word spread quietly among musicians and insiders that Elvis had turned down a song because it hurt too much, it created a question no one could shake. What kind of pain was too deep, even for Elvis Presley? This wasn't a song meant for controversy. It wasn't political. It wasn't risky in a business sense. In fact, many believed it could have been one of his most powerful recordings, the kind that stops time, the kind that people play when they're alone at night. But that was the problem. The song didn't perform. It confessed. It didn't entertain. It exposed. And Elvis understood immediately what it would cost him to sing it. To the public, Elvis was untouchable, larger than life, the man who survived fame, pressure, and expectations that would crash anyone else. But inside, Elvis was a man who carried memories he never learned how to put down. Fame didn't erase them, it amplified them. Every stage light made the shadows sharper. Every applause reminded him of what was missing. And this song didn't let him hide behind rhythm or charisma. It stood still. It waited. It asked him to stand there too. Those close to Elvis noticed something different whenever this song came up. His posture changed. His voice lowered. He became distant, as if pulled backward in time. This wasn't about protecting his image. Elvis had already sacrificed that many times. This was about protecting something fragile inside him that never healed properly, something connected to loss, something connected to regret, something connected to a promise he could never keep. The truth is, Elvis didn't just sing songs, he lived inside them. When he sang heartbreak, he felt it. When he sang loneliness, it echoed back at him. And this song was dangerous because it wasn't about a character, it wasn't a story, it was him. Stripped of the crown, stripped of the legend, just a man facing a memory he spent his entire life running from. People often say Elvis gave everything to his audience, and that's mostly true, but there were a few rooms in his heart he kept locked, not because he was selfish, but because opening them would destroy him. This song held the key to one of those rooms, and once a door like that is opened, it never fully closes again. The irony is painful. Elvis made millions of people feel understood through his voice. Yet, there was one feeling he could not share without breaking himself in the process. The song wasn't long, it wasn't complex, but every line landed exactly where Elvis hurt the most. It spoke about absence without drama, about love without comfort, about regret without forgiveness. It didn't offer healing, it only told the truth. And Elvis knew something most people don't realize until it's too late. Not every truth is meant to be spoken out loud. Some truths, once released, don't bring relief. They only leave you empty afterward. Elvis had already lost so much of himself to the world. This song threatened to take what little remained. What makes this story even heavier is that Elvis didn't reject the song immediately. He considered it. He lived with it. He carried it quietly. He knew its power. He respected it. That's why he feared it. Because deep down, he understood that if he ever sang it, the audience wouldn't just hear pain, they would feel it. And once they felt it, they would own a piece of him he could never take back. So Elvis chose silence, not because he was weak, but because he knew his limits. In a career defined by excess, restraint became his final defense. The song stayed unrecorded, unperformed, unreleased. And in that silence, it gained a strange power. It became a shadow following Elvis through the rest of his life, a reminder of the line he would not cross. But this refusal didn't come from nowhere. It was rooted in a story that began long before Elvis wore a crown, long before the world learned his name. To understand why this song was too painful to share, we have to go back to the boy Elvis once was, the boy who learned loss before fame, the boy who attached his heart to one person so deeply that losing her reshaped everything that came after. Because the song didn't hurt Elvis the star, it hurt Elvis the son, and that is where the real story begins. Before Elvis Presley became a symbol, before his name turned into a brand, before his voice filled arenas and radios across America, he was just a quiet boy growing up in Tupelo, Mississippi. There was no spotlight there, no glamour, just dust, heat, and a small house that could barely hold the weight of hope. Elvis was born into poverty so deep that it shaped the way he listened to the world. Every sound mattered, every word stayed. When you grow up with very little, you learn early how fragile life is, and Elvis felt that fragility more than most. From the beginning, Elvis was different. Not louder, not stronger, more sensitive. He noticed things other people ignored. The sadness in his parents' voices when money ran out, the way silence filled a room after bad news, the fear that lived quietly behind smiles. While other children ran outside to play, Elvis often stayed close to home. And at the center of that home was his mother, Gladys Presley. Gladys wasn't just his mother, she was her world. She was protection, she was reassurance. She was the voice that told him he mattered when nothing around them suggested it. Elvis clung to her emotionally, not because she was weak, but because she was the only place that felt safe. His father struggled, life was unstable, but Gladys stayed steady in the way only a deeply loving mother can. She believed in Elvis long before anyone else did, and Elvis absorbed that belief like oxygen. People later called Elvis shy, even awkward as a child. What they didn't understand was that he was listening, watching, feeling everything.
He carried emotion the way other children carried toys, and music became the place where all of that emotion could go. When Elvis sang as a boy, he wasn't performing. He was releasing something he didn't have words for yet. His voice already carried longing, already carried ache, even before he knew what he was missing. Gladys noticed it. She saw how music changed him, how his shoulders relaxed, how his eyes softened. She encouraged him in small, quiet ways, not with pressure, with faith. When Elvis received his first guitar, it wasn't a symbol of a future star. It was a lifeline, something he could hold when the world felt uncertain. And Gladys watched him closely, knowing somehow that this boy felt more deeply than life would ever be gentle with. As Elvis grew older, the bond between mother and son only tightened. Fame wasn't even a dream yet. Survival was the goal. And in that struggle, Elvis learned something dangerous. He learned that love could feel like safety, but also like fear. Fear of losing it, fear of being separated from it, fear that if it disappeared, nothing would replace it. That fear rooted itself deep inside him, long before the world ever demanded pieces of his soul. When the Presley family moved to Memphis, life didn't suddenly improve. It changed, but it didn't soften. Elvis saw more, heard more, felt more. The city was louder, harsher, fuller of temptation and danger. But Gladys remained his constant, and Elvis remained hers. He protected her emotionally the way she had protected him physically. They leaned on each other in a way that was beautiful, but fragile. Music followed Elvis everywhere. Church, streets, radios. He absorbed gospel pain and blues sorrow like they were written directly for him. And Gladys listened to him sing with a mixture of pride and fear. Pride because she knew he was special. Fear because she sensed that the world would not be kind to someone who felt this much. And she was right. When Elvis finally began to attract attention for his voice, Gladys was proud but uneasy. She worried about the speed of it all, the attention, the pressure. She worried about what success might take from her son. Elvis felt that tension too. Part of him wanted to rise. Another part wanted to stay right where he was, in the safety of being unseen, unheard, untouched by expectation. That inner conflict never left him. It followed him into adulthood, into fame, into every studio and stage. The boy who needed his mother never disappeared. He was just buried beneath applause. This is why the song hurt so much later, because it didn't just remind Elvis of loss, it reminded him of the version of himself that existed before loss, the boy who sang without fear, the boy who believed love was permanent,
the boy who hadn't yet learned that destiny sometimes demands the one thing you can't afford to give. By the time Elvis stood in that room years later, staring at lyrics he couldn't sing, he wasn't just facing a song, he was facing a lifetime of emotional memory that began in a small house in Tupelo, a lifetime shaped by attachment, by vulnerability, by love that became fear the moment it felt threatened. And the tragedy is this: Elvis never stopped being that boy. Fame didn't harden him, it exposed him. It magnified the very sensitivity that made him great. And when the world finally took the one person he loved most, it didn't just break his heart, it rewrote his entire relationship with pain.
The song he refused to sing was born in that rewrite, in the space between who he was and who he became, between the mother who believed in him and the man who blamed himself for not being there enough. And when that loss finally came, it came fast, too fast, faster than he was ready for, because fame had already started pulling him away, and destiny was about to collect its cruelest payment yet. Elvis Presley did not slowly step into fame. He was pulled into it, dragged by momentum so strong that even he couldn't fully understand what was happening to his life until it was already gone. One day he was a young man trying to find his place, and the next day the world decided who he was supposed to be. Radio stations played his voice on repeat. Crowds grew larger. Expectations grew heavier. And with every new success, the distance between Elvis and the life he once knew quietly widened. At first, fame felt unreal, exciting, like proof that the belief his mother had placed in him was finally being rewarded. Elvis wanted to give her everything: a better house, security, pride. He worked relentlessly, driven by a need not just to succeed, but to justify the sacrifices his family had made. He didn't slow down. He didn't question the pace. He trusted the process because everyone around him said this was what destiny looked like. But destiny rarely warns you before it takes something back. As Elvis traveled, recorded, and performed, Gladys struggled. The world saw a rising star. Elvis saw his mother fading. The stress, the loneliness, the fear of losing her son to a world she didn't understand. She worried constantly, and Elvis felt that worry every time he heard her voice on the phone. He wanted to be present, but fame doesn't pause. Every missed visit became a quiet weight on his chest. Every goodbye felt unfinished. Then, suddenly, the thing Elvis feared most happened. His mother died. The news didn't arrive gently, it shattered him. Elvis collapsed in grief that witnesses described as raw and uncontrollable. This wasn't the composed sorrow of a public figure. This was a son who had lost the center of his emotional universe. He cried like a child because in that moment, he was one again. The boy who needed his mother. The boy who believed she would always be there. Guilt flooded him. He blamed himself for being gone, for choosing the stage, for not stopping everything when he sensed something was wrong. Success, which once felt like a gift, suddenly felt like a betrayal. Elvis had gained the world and lost the one person he would have traded it all for without hesitation. After Gladys's death, something in Elvis changed permanently. It wasn't obvious at first. He still performed, still smiled, still gave audiences what they came for. But the light behind his eyes dimmed. Those close to him noticed it. He became quieter off stage, more guarded. Music still flowed through him, but it carried more sorrow than before. Even his happiest songs had an undertone of loss. This was when music stopped being just expression and became survival. Elvis sang to cope. He sang to avoid thinking. He sang because silence reminded him of what was gone. Gospel music, especially, became a refuge. It connected him to his mother, to church, to moments when life felt simpler, safer. But even gospel couldn't heal the wound. It only gave it a voice. And this is where the song entered his life. The lyrics didn't mention Gladys by name. They didn't need to. They spoke about absence, about regret that comes too late, about wishing you could say something one more time. The words mirrored the conversations Elvis replayed endlessly in his mind. Things he wished he had said, moments he wished he had chosen differently. It was as if the song had been written by someone who had watched his life from the inside. When Elvis first read it, he didn't react like a performer evaluating material. He reacted like a son confronted with a memory he tried not to touch. The room felt smaller, the air heavier. He knew instantly that this song was dangerous, not because it would make him cry, but because it would force him to admit something he never said out loud, that fame had cost him time he could never get back.
People assume Elvis feared vulnerability. That isn't true. He lived inside vulnerability. What he feared was finality. Singing this song would turn private grief into permanent record. It would freeze his guilt in time, replayed forever by strangers who could never understand what it felt like to carry it every day. After his mother's death, Elvis also became more dependent on control. Schedules, environments, people he trusted, anything that made life feel predictable again. The song threatened that fragile balance. It didn't ask politely, it demanded honesty. And honesty for Elvis had become a risk. The public wanted strength, charm, confidence. They wanted the king. They didn't want a man still grieving his mother years later. Elvis understood this better than anyone. He felt responsible not just for his own image, but for the expectations of millions. And so he learned to compartmentalize. Pain here, performance there. Never let the two fully collide. But the song refused to stay in its place. Every time it resurfaced, it reopened the same wound. Every time someone suggested recording it, Elvis felt the same tightening in his chest. He would change the subject, deflect, move on. Silence became his answer, and those who respected him stopped pushing, because they could see it wasn't artistic hesitation, it was emotional self-preservation. The tragedy is that the song wasn't cruel, it wasn't exploitative. It was gentle, and that gentleness made it worse, because it didn't allow anger, it didn't allow escape. It simply sat with grief and named it honestly. And Elvis wasn't ready to sit there publicly, not with cameras, not with microphones, not with the world listening. From that point on, Elvis's relationship with music shifted. He still sang with power, still moved audiences, but there was a line he would not cross, a place he would not take them. The song marked that boundary. A reminder that even legends have limits. Even voices that move millions sometimes must stay silent to survive. And yet, the silence didn't erase the song. It stayed with him, in quiet moments, in late nights, in the spaces between performances, a constant echo of a life split in two, before loss, after loss. And the cruelest part was this: the more time passed, the heavier the song became, because with every year that went by, the chance to sing it without breaking completely grew smaller. Elvis knew that avoiding the truth would cost more than facing it, and deep down, he feared that moment was coming, because grief doesn't fade when ignored. It waits, and the song was waiting too.
It didn't open with drama or power. It began quietly, almost like a thought you try to push away before it fully forms. That was the first thing that unsettled Elvis. There was no place to hide inside it. No big chorus to lean on, no swagger, no escape, just words that arrived gently and stayed longer than they should. Elvis read the lyrics alone at first, slowly, line by line, and with every line, something inside him tightened. The song spoke about love that didn't end cleanly, about words left unsaid, about the strange pain of realizing too late that time had already made its decision. It didn't accuse, it didn't comfort either. It simply told the truth, and the truth didn't need to raise its voice to be devastating. What made the lyrics unbearable was not what they described, but what they implied. They assumed loss was permanent, that regret doesn't resolve, that memory becomes heavier, not lighter with time. Elvis had built his life around movement, tours, projects, applause, noise. The song stood still. It forced him to stop moving, and stopping meant feeling everything he had been outrunning since his mother died. There was a line in the song that haunted him, not because it was poetic, but because it was ordinary, the kind of sentence people think every day and never say out loud, a sentence about wishing for one more moment, one more chance to speak, one more chance to choose differently. Elvis had thought that sentence thousands of times. Hearing it written down felt like being seen without permission. This wasn't a song about death, it was a song about what comes after. The quiet, the emptiness, the way the world keeps going while something inside you freezes. Elvis understood that feeling too well. After Gladys died, life didn't pause. Contracts remained, shows went on, the machine kept moving, and Elvis moved with it,
even though part of him had stopped. The lyrics didn't allow heroic framing. There was no lesson, no redemption, no moment where pain transforms into wisdom. That was the most dangerous part. The song didn't promise healing. It didn't say everything happens for a reason. It didn't turn suffering into something useful. It simply acknowledged that some losses never make sense, and some guilt never finds a place to rest. As a performer, Elvis knew how to sell emotion. He could shape it, control it, deliver it in a way that felt powerful but contained. These lyrics resisted control. They asked for vulnerability without performance, for honesty without reward. And Elvis understood that once he sang those words, he wouldn't be acting, he would be confessing. People often imagine artists fear exposing weakness. That wasn't the case here. Elvis had exposed weakness before. He sang heartbreak, loneliness, longing. But this song wasn't about romantic loss. It was about responsibility, about realizing you can love someone deeply and still fail them without meaning to. That realization is harder to sing because it leaves no one else to blame. The song also removed the distance between Elvis and his audience. Normally, a performer stands slightly apart, even emotionally. There is a boundary, a role. These lyrics erased that boundary. They invited listeners directly into the most private room of his grief. Once invited in, they could never be asked to leave. Elvis knew that too. Those close to him noticed that he never criticized the song. He never said it was wrong. He never suggested changes.
He didn't ask for rewrites. That silence spoke louder than rejection. It was his way of acknowledging that the song was true. And truth, in this case, was exactly the problem. Elvis also feared what the song would awaken. Grief is not linear. It doesn't stay where you put it. Once stirred, it spreads. He worried that singing the song would unlock emotions he had carefully contained just enough to function. That once opened, the door would not close again. And there was no guarantee he could survive that emotionally, especially under the weight of public expectation. There was another layer of pain hidden in the lyrics. They carried the sense of being absent even when present, of loving someone while life pulls you elsewhere. That cut deeply, because Elvis had lived that exact reality. He had been physically away when his mother needed him most. Even if he couldn't have changed the outcome, the feeling of absence still haunted him. The song named that feeling without mercy. The more Elvis understood the lyrics, the more impossible the song became. Not because he didn't have the voice, but because he didn't have the emotional armor. Singing it would mean standing still while millions listened to his most unhealed wound. And Elvis had learned the hard way that some wounds don't close. They only scar over enough to keep going. In the end, the song became a line he would not cross. Not out of fear, but out of self-awareness. Elvis knew his limits. He knew that surviving fame already required constant emotional compromise. This song demanded something he could not give without losing himself entirely. And yet, the song did not disappear. It waited. In studios, in conversations, in quiet moments when Elvis was alone with his thoughts. Every time it resurfaced, it asked the same silent question. Are you ready now? Elvis never answered, because answering meant facing the one thing he had never learned how to do: let go. And that unresolved tension, the truth he carried but never released, was about to collide with the world that owned his voice. The conflict was no longer just internal. It was about to become unavoidable. By the time the song had become a quiet ghost in Elvis's life, he was no longer just a man with a voice. He was a product, a schedule, a promise to investors, managers, studios, and millions of fans who expected him to deliver a certain feeling every time he stepped into the light. Elvis understood this better than anyone. Fame had given him power, but it had also taken away control. And the more successful he became, the smaller his personal space grew. Colonel Parker didn't see songs the way Elvis did. He saw timing, markets, audience appetite. A song wasn't pain or truth, it was potential revenue. And from that perspective, the song Elvis refused made no sense. It was strong, emotional, marketable, the kind of song that could cement legacy. The pressure to record it never came aggressively. It came subtly. Suggestions, conversations, quiet expectations. Elvis felt it every time the song came up and the room leaned forward slightly, waiting. This was the machine at work,
Not cruel, just indifferent. The machine didn't care why a song hurt. It only cared whether it sold. And Elvis was expected to keep feeding it. Album after album, performance after performance, smile after smile. The public wanted authenticity, but only the kind that could be consumed safely. Pain was welcome, as long as it didn't make people uncomfortable. The song threatened that balance. It wasn't entertaining pain. It was unresolved pain. And unresolved pain doesn't sell cleanly. It lingers. It asks questions. It leaves silence where applause should be. Elvis knew that if he sang it, the room wouldn't cheer. They would listen. And listening would change the relationship between him and the audience forever. Elvis began to realize something terrifying. The more the world demanded honesty from him, the less space it gave him to actually be honest. He was allowed to feel, but only within limits. Allowed to suffer, but only beautifully. Allowed to grieve, but never too openly. This song crossed all those boundaries at once. So Elvis pushed back in the only way he could, quietly. He didn't fight, he didn't argue, he simply didn't sing it. In a world where everything was negotiated, silence became his final form of resistance. And while the machine kept moving, Elvis drew a line inside himself and refused to let it be crossed. But lines like that come at a cost, because holding something in for too long doesn't make it disappear. It just forces it to find another way out. And Elvis was already carrying more than anyone realized. The conflict was no longer just about one song. It was about ownership. Who owned his voice? Who owned his pain? And how much of himself Elvis was expected to give away to remain the king? The machine didn't ask those questions, but Elvis lived inside them every day. And soon, the pressure would reach a breaking point, a moment where avoidance would no longer be enough. There was a night when Elvis came closer than ever to singing the song. The studio lights were low, the room was calm. No tension, no expectations spoken out loud, just musicians waiting, quietly respectful. Elvis stood at the microphone, headphones on, breathing slow. For a moment, it looked like this might finally be the night. The music began softly, nothing dramatic, just enough to guide him. Elvis closed his eyes, and when he opened his mouth to sing, his voice came out steady at first, familiar, controlled. But then the first line landed, and something changed. His voice hesitated, just slightly, enough for everyone in the room to feel it. Elvis stopped. He took a breath, tried again. This time the words reached deeper, too deep. His throat tightened, his hands dropped to his sides, and the room went completely still. No one spoke, no one moved, because they could see it. Elvis wasn't struggling with pitch or timing, he was struggling with memory. The song had done exactly what he feared it would. It pulled him backward, out of the studio, out of the present, into a space where applause couldn't reach him. Elvis removed the headphones slowly. He didn't look angry. He looked exposed, like someone who had just realized they were standing without armor. He didn't explain himself. He didn't have to. The silence explained everything. That was the closest the song ever came to being born, and that moment sealed its fate. Because Elvis understood then with absolute clarity that singing it would not bring relief. It would break something he didn't know how to fix. He walked away from the microphone, and no one tried to stop him. After that night, the song was never mentioned directly again. It became an unspoken agreement, a door everyone knew not to open. Elvis didn't ban it, he didn't forbid discussion. He simply carried on, choosing other material, other emotions, other ways to survive.
Silence became his shield, not weakness, strategy. Elvis learned that survival and fame required selective honesty. You give enough to feel real, but not so much that you collapse under the weight of it. The song demanded total honesty, and Elvis could not afford that. Instead, he poured fragments of that pain into other performances. You could hear it in the way he sang gospel, in the way certain lines lingered longer than necessary, in the way his eyes changed when he sang about home or loss or longing. The song was never sung, but it was never gone either. Elvis chose silence because he knew something most people don't learn until too late, that some truths, once spoken, don't heal you, they only define you, and Elvis refused to be defined by his deepest wound.
But silence has consequences. It isolates, it creates distance, and over time it becomes heavy. The song remained locked away, but the emotions behind it continued to surface in other, more destructive ways. The protection worked, but it wasn't free. As the years passed, Elvis found other ways to cope, some healthy, some not. Music remained his closest companion, gospel especially. Singing gospel connected him to his mother in a way nothing else could. It felt safe, sacred, like speaking to her without needing words. But the pain also leaked into exhaustion, dependence, isolation. The world saw extravagance. Elvis felt emptiness. He kept giving, but less of himself returned each time. The song he never sang became a symbol of everything he never processed fully. Fans felt it, even if they couldn't name it. There was a sadness in Elvis's later performances that went beyond age or fatigue, a weight, a sense of someone carrying something heavy for too long. The unsung song followed him everywhere, not as regret, but as reminder. A reminder that there was a version of honesty he never allowed himself to reach. And time was running out. After Elvis died, the song didn't stay silent. Other artists found it, sang it, recorded it. And listeners reacted in a way that surprised everyone. They said it felt like Elvis, too much like Elvis, as if he were present in every line. People began to understand why he couldn't sing it. Hearing it without his voice made the absence louder. The song felt like something missing, not something completed. It answered questions Elvis never spoke aloud. In a strange way, the song became his confession after death, not because he sang it, but because he didn't. Elvis Presley gave the world joy, sound, movement, and emotion beyond measure. But there was one truth he kept to himself, one song that remained locked away because it touched the core of who he was beneath the legend. He didn't fail to sing it, he chose not to. And that choice tells us more about Elvis than any performance ever could. It reminds us that even the strongest voices have limits, even icons have private pain, and even kings must sometimes protect their hearts by staying silent. The song was too painful to share. Not because Elvis was weak, but because he was human. And sometimes the most powerful thing a man can do is choose not to sing.